back a little bit. When I was in college, I remember hearing about a alumni person that was in the college theater scene. Chris Benham, actually. He was in a play at Pentacle at some point. I'm not even sure if it ended up happening. I just heard that. So I was like, oh, Pentacle, where's that? And people were like, oh, it's in Salem, and that's the first time I think I heard about it. And then when I was actually finally living in Salem, I heard about an audition for the Mikado in the Oregonian A&E. But I was really excited about it and hopeful to do something there. So I actually auditioned for Godspell, and I didn't get in. But I actually like to point that out because often when people first audition for shows at Pentacle and they don't get in the first time, they kind of give up hope and they go, oh, I'm done with Pentacle or whatever. But I always like to point out that the first show I auditioned for, and I got a call back for it, but I did not get in. Then later I auditioned for Kiss Me Kate. And that one I did get in. I was in the chorus of that, and that was directed by Susan Shopes. It was a great first show to be in at Pentacle because it was such a big chorus. Really got to know people in that show. Some of those folks are my best friends today, like Jeff Witt, and Rachel Duncan was also in that show, and Vincenzo Maduri was in that show. And of course, now he's the artistic director in Enlightened. So it was really cool to know him at such a young age. And many more, obviously, were in Kiss Me Kate as well. So it was really awesome to get to know such a large group of people all at once, many of which are still really good friends of mine. I think the funny thing, as I was thinking about Pentacle and why it was so special, is it was my dream to be a part of a community theater, which I know people may not understand, but I grew up in rural Southern Oregon, and we had to drive 45 minutes to get to the closest theater, which was Rogue Music Theater in Grants Pass. And we did a lot of that in high school, which was pretty exciting, and we loved it. But I just was so enamored with the whole concept of this community of people that did show after show after show there. And then, of course, I moved away from Southern Oregon and just always hoped that I could be in a community like that, and definitely found that home at Pentacle Theater. I started taking voice lessons when I was in high school, and it was something that I felt so fortunate to have a parent that was willing to drive me 45 minutes away to Grants Pass to do voice lessons. I also studied throughout college. So yeah, that was something that I was really thankful for. The thing that's really cool about Pentacle for me is the learning environment in which it created, because I'd started doing community theater out there when I was in my 20s. So I guess mid-20s was my first show. I've learned so much through that platform. Acting, singing, so much about directing, just the process in general. Even though I had a bit of experience before that, it's such a safe environment in which to learn and to really glean the knowledge of other people that are involved. Oh, that's so funny. I was like, before I do that interview, I should probably count it up, right? So I could be prepared. So, gosh, I don't think I've done a ton. I still feel like a newbie in a way, which I guess I'm not anymore. But, I don't feel like I'm quite to the status of some of those, those folks that have been interviewed already. Or I still feel like a little college. Maybe I'm a sophomore, but I want to say, gosh, probably 15 at this point. Maybe. Yeah. I'm going to be embarrassed if that's an overshooting, but I've been involved in some way or another, whether directing or acting, and I've also been board liaison. And for a while there were production consultants, and I was production consultants on some, and there's a lot of special moments. It's really hard to have one or the other. It's like your children in a way, it's hard to pick your favorite kid or your favorite cat in my instance. But the ones that stick out in my mind as the most enjoyable, being a part of Rent actually was really one of the most exhilarating times of my life in general. I mean, it was one of those shows that you never stopped. It's like you were always moving backstage, putting on a costume piece, taking it off. And it was a really sparse stage. So there's even backstage, you could kind of see backstage. And we all kind of felt like we were in the moment, even backstage. So it was just a very powerful show. And also to be in that show with some dear friends was a pretty amazing experience. I also feel a very special place in my heart for Once Upon a Mattress. It was my second chance to play Winifred, also directed by Deborah Johansen. I have a lot of fondness for Fred, and it was just a lot of fun and a great foundation for me as far as my Pinnacle experience. One that it's interesting because the role itself was just very special. It may not be like my favorite show of all time, but I really loved being able to sing in 9 to 5 the musical, Get Out, Stay Out, because that was just the whole message in that show about finally taking that stand was just a really powerful moment for me. And I dedicated it to my mom as well. So. A lot about that song too, for me specifically, that song Shy, I was one that I don't think people looked at me and thought, now there's someone that's like got a big voice, or there's someone that is a lead in a play. Because I always had this quiet I kind of was shy back in the day. And I actually got to play this role in college as well. And it was like one of those moments, like I think I loved is that there was more to her than just the first glance of what you saw. Because a lot of people thought that about me, that I was this quiet, demure person. And then all of a sudden it was like, shy, I was like, wow. And so that was like who I really was, that people didn't know. And so I think that was that little surprise of like, oh my gosh. Well, I did love that show. The fun thing about that show for me is really embracing the character of Betty and how she really just didn't care anymore. She was just beyond caring, and she was going to do what she wanted, and everyone else could just deal, which is also something, I think that is hard for me to embrace in real life. So I really appreciated that opportunity to have fun with that and to strut my stuff and to just have a great time. I think a lot of the fun about that particular musical is to be able to be in a small ensemble, because a lot of musicals are these grand, huge, just tons of people. You don't necessarily get to know even everyone in the show, which is always unfortunate. But with something like that show, which, gosh, I think we had 9 people. It was just a really close-knit group. I love singing in the trio with Jen Kircher and Emma Thurston. They were just so awesome. And I also just loved everyone in that show and how they just gave it their all. So it was great. Another show that I also thought was up there in one of my favorites was Spelling Bee. And for a musical, it was interesting that there weren't a lot of people that showed up to that for a musical, especially for one that Robert Sahlberg directed. But it was some of the most fun I've had on stage because of the improv element. The first half of the show, Tom Hewitt and I kind of directed who went where and when. And it wasn't one of those things that you could settle into every night and go, okay, we got this. It was like every night was a brand new performance. And that was just an awesome aspect. And in general, that's what I love. I've been thinking about some of the things I love about theater and I love about directing and being able to see people enjoy the show every night, is that it's for something that has the same cast of characters, the same lines, the same group of people putting the same amount of energy into it every single night. It's always a different show depending on who shows up and how the audience is experiencing it. And that's one of the more beautiful things about theater to me, is that it has that much agility as far as the experience based off of who is watching it and how they're experiencing it in that moment. So it's pretty powerful. But well, with directing, I'm always just like, I'm not sure if I'm really a director yet, which kind of cracks me up because I know I've done it a few times now and I should kind of like own it a little bit. But I'm also at that point where I'm always just like, am I any good at this? It's just a lot of work. And I'm not saying that to get any fishing for compliments or anything, but it's just something I take so seriously. And I yeah, anyway, all I have to say is on the directing side, I don't really know if there's anything like, ooh, I really want to direct that someday. As far as musicals are concerned, I think I tend to gravitate towards the more contemporary, which is so funny because at first I was not. I was like, Rodgers and Hammerstein or bust was like my motto. Like it even took me a long time to like accept Sondheim. But now that I have, I tend to gravitate more towards the more modern musical, I would say, the ones that are just a little, they tell the story of people's lives in a different way. So Next to Normal, for example, I would love to play that role, the mom in that. As far as non-musicals are concerned, I would actually really love to have some of those meaty dramatic roles. I know it's scandalous for a musical theater gal to say that, but I would, like, for example, I would love to do Tennessee Williams or, something of that effect. I don't think I've been brave enough to even audition for anything yet, though. But one of these days, I'm going to get brave. I call myself an evangelist for Pentacle often, or for theater in general, but definitely Pentacle Theater, because I really feel like part of the process is where you actually find that character. Because I think so many times, and I even do this still right before I audition, I go, ooh, I really want to play Badass Betty, but can I do that? Can I pull it off? Like, can I really be that character? And it's so silly because I've had that dialogue in my head so many times, but then I realize it's not like you get the part and then the next day you play Badass Betty. You get the part and then you start to have that discovery process and also the learning, which builds the confidence, and the rehearsal, which builds the confidence. But it's all about that continuing discovery, and you have to trust in the process that it'll get you there. You have to trust that. So I have to tell myself that, I guess, too, with the whole Tennessee Williams dream that I have not. I bring that out in a lot of people, Liz. But, and I do try to push myself to, the thing about Pinnacle is it's a safe place, it's a safe place to try things out. It's a safe place to fail. It's a safe place to succeed. It's that's why I feel like I've been so fortunate to have the experiences I've had, to have the creative license I've had, to have the advocates and the support that I have there. My hope is to always continue to extend what was given to me to others too. So that's something that I think you have to be intentional about and mindful of too. The success of that show for me lies in the actors that showed up. I'm so proud of them. And everyone handled the piece with so much love and delicacy. And we all just loved the piece so much. That ensemble is probably one of the most loving ensembles I've experienced as well at Pinnacle. It was like a little family. It was just a really special group and a special time and a special piece. I'm also very thankful for Del Shores because, as you know, he recently has been very active in fundraising for community theaters across the country. And one of those community theaters is Pentacle. He's also been like such a huge support, and he's been so accessible. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to him and he's responded to me within a day. And it was just, oh, it's just really special. And it's to feel like you kind of have a relationship with a playwright. It's really special. So I really appreciate him and his support of Pentacle Theatre and other community theaters across the country. And I hope once we get back up and running, and whatever that looks like in the future, we can think about too more about how do we not only continue to tell our stories, but how do we tell the stories of other people in our community that may not look like me or have the same sexual orientation as me or the same color as me. And I think that was one of the important parts about Yellow, was it was telling the story about a member of the LGBTQ community and telling it in a way through the perspective of an adolescent, and in a very beautiful, sweet way. But, obviously also addressing the fact that it was about this family too, and how he was in their lives. And I think it's important that we continue to tell the stories from everyone in our community. And I felt like Yellow did that. We may not realize it as much with Pentacle, that we are actually the ones that need to kind of reach out more than folks coming to us. Does that make sense? Yeah. But the exciting thing about it all, and if you look at it from the perspective of theater in general, is like, we are the ones that are supposed to be in the front lines doing all of this, right? We are going to be creative. We're going to, I think Pentacle even has had a history of producing shows that were edgy, that were relevant. And I feel like now we have that opportunity to continue that. Yeah. It's like the agitation part of the washing machine. Like if it didn't have the agitation, then the clothes wouldn't actually become clean. Yeah. So sometimes it requires something like this. I mean, it requires discomfort in order to come up from the pain and the ashes. So. It's interesting. I actually, in my dreams, will be at an opening night reception party of a Pentacle show. And I just miss hugging people, and I miss having just that like brief interaction. And it's weird because I don't actually miss being on stage at this point, which is interesting for someone that seems like they're such a performance junkie. But I miss being in rehearsals with people. I miss interacting with folks. I miss the process. I miss everyone. So I think that is what has been the most surprising about it, because Pentacle is much more than just our plays that we produce. It is really about the company and the community that we have. It truly is something special. It really is. And I don't know if everyone realizes how unique it is too, but I'm definitely thankful for it. But I would also say, just don't lose hope. Maybe our world's going to be a little different for a while. And it's not going to be exactly the same as it was. But I think that if we stick to the foundation and to the core truths of what theater is and why we're here, we'll figure something out.